Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And I'm, of course, being joined today by the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
I am very excited that Noah Hawley has his first feature coming out starring Natalie Portman, who goes into space.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second, actually, because I got a few thoughts on that. And we're also being joined, of course, by Ashley Whalen. Ashley, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited to hear about that. I love Natalie Portman, and I did not hear that news yet.
Yeah, well, what there is a film that they've been talking about for a while it was going to be called Pale Blue Dot. And as a matter of fact, everything I had heard up to this point, it was going to be called Pale Blue Dot. Now, what they had been talking about was Natalie Portman is an astronaut. One of her fellow astronauts, John Hamm, but she's married. And she starts to have an affair with John Hamm. And then she finds out John Hamm is having an affair with Zazie Beetz, who is another person involved. And she comes back to Earth and she's having trouble, kind of acclimating back to what it's like being on Earth. But anyway, I guess they changed the title to, what was it? Lucy in the Sky? Dumb title.
Okay.
And the first trailer just dropped.
The first trailer just dropped, and it's a terrible trailer. It's a terrible trailer. It's you know what it reminds me of, Robert? It reminds me of that, the first couple of horrible trailers that they put out for Edge of Tomorrow. Remember those, this is not the end. Like, it was they just went so far out of the way to make it look trippy that they forgot to make it look appealing. And so they put out this first trailer with these powerhouse performers, and it looks trippy, and they forgot to make it look appealing. Like, I didn't see anything other than the fact that Natalie Portman is starring in this thing. I saw nothing in this trailer that made me go, ooh, I want to get out and see this. Like, did you?
Space. All you have to do is put a spaceship. I see a space shuttle in orbit, I'm in. Anything to do with outer space, I'll go. And astronauts fascinate me. So,
they had a problem making the trailer for her last film too, Vox Lux, or what the hell?
Yeah.
That trailer, I saw one good one where it was compelling and she was actually singing, and then the other one I saw, she wasn't singing at all. It was scattered. It was weird, and it made none of us want to go to the movie. And I love her, so they got to really be careful about their trailers.
It's almost as if they're thinking Natalie Portman's in it. We have to make it look like Black Swan. Like, because both like Vox Lux and this one, I keep wanting to call it Pale Blue Dot, but Lucy in the Sky, they have the same feel as the Black Swan trailers did, but that worked for Black Swan. So I don't know. I don't know why they're doing that. Hey, listen, guys, one more thing off the top here that I want to talk about. We all know, of course, that there is a brand new Toy Story 4 coming. They put out a little clips here and there. Well, today, the first full official trailer for Toy Story 4 dropped, where we got a sense of what the movie was about. That came. We, of course, got to see Bo Peep. We got to see Andy again and all that kind of stuff. Rob, you just had a chance to see this Toy Story 4 trailer. What do you think about it?
You know what? It's certainly gone off in a different direction. And I'm intrigued by where they're going with it. It looks really different from the other Toy Story movies, which is a good thing. But I watch it and I'm like, wow, this is, I don't know. It looks really different from the other. The plot seems to have Woody going off on sort of this personal odyssey. He basically goes on a road trip, it seems. And I'm intrigued. I mean, it wasn't what I was expecting, but I mean, after 4 movies, I would expect that they would change it up. And I trust in Pixar because the 3 Toy Story movies are collectively one of the great trilogies of all time. So I trust.
No, they really are.
Oh, and it looks really, I mean, this idea that a child could love a toy that isn't a toy in the form of that spork.
Forky.
Forky, and the toys themselves are having an identity crisis because, wait a minute, why does she love this and not us? How is this a toy? And I thought that's a really intriguing premise. So I'm in.
And the existential questions. I am not meant to be a toy. I'm meant for soup or cereal, and then to go into the trash. So there's these existential questions. There was a little bit of a reminder of me of like the original Toy Story, because remember, they fall off the car. Oh no, we're lost. They did a little bit of that again with the RV and all that kind of stuff. That was sweet. That was nice. This felt like the most mature Toy Story trailer we've ever seen. Like is a lot heavier than a lot of Toy Story stuff. Now, of course, there was also like one toy wants to keep them there. We've seen that in other Toy Stories before. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how I feel about the trailer. I don't know how I feel about it. I was wanting to be wowed by the first Toy Story trailer. And granted, It is just a first trailer. But I don't know. Instead of, like, when the trailers for Toy Story 2 came out, I was like, wow. And when the Toy Story 3 came out, it was like exciting. And I didn't feel that. I felt a little bit of sense of, we've been there and done that. And I've never felt that before for other Toy Story trailers. So, look, I'm sure this movie's going to be great. I'm sure. But I got to say, while it was cool to see all the gang back together again and all that kind of stuff, I don't think this trailer upped my excitement for the movie.
Well, you know, it felt like a different company was releasing it. It's like if A24 released a Toy Story movie,
Yes.
This would be the indie version of Toy Story, you know?
Absolutely.
That's kind of how I felt. From the studio that brought you Hereditary comes Toy Story 4.
All right, guys, listen, we've got a whole bunch of things, a bunch of main topics that we're going to get here today. But before we do, I just wanted to share this again. I swear I'm not going to plug this forever. But, you know, we told you the other day that me and Robert started a new podcast with Olympic gold medalist Cody Miller called Best Movie, Worst Movie. And we just put up our second episode yesterday. So the second episode of Best Movie, Worst Movie went up yesterday. Our category this week was 80s action films. And I was telling you that it had debuted in the top 10 on the iTunes charts. Well, thanks to you guys, that's gone up. We now rank number 2 on the podcast charts, only behind Ellen. So we're coming for Ellen, apparently. So and on top of that, we are actually now the number 1 podcast for Great Britain. So we're number 1 there. In my home country of Canada, we are the number 2 podcast, also behind Ellen. But apparently we are also, Robert, the number 1 podcast in Hong Kong. We are the number 1 podcast, not only in the UK, we're also the number 1 podcast in Hong Kong. And like number 6 in India, which thank you so much for you guys who watch us in India and all that kind of stuff. So guys, do me a favor, jump onto iTunes or your favorite podcasting app, whatever that is. Look up Best Movie, Worst Movie. If you have a hard time finding it, just search for my name, John Campea, and I'm sure you'll find it. Subscribe, rate, comment, all that kind of stuff. Go check out the first 2 episodes that we have. And thank you again, guys, for your support. Check out Best Movie, Worst Movie. So there. I promise I won't plug this every day. I promise. I just very excited that we've launched it finally because we've been talking about this podcast for months. And we're just kind of excited that's up there. And we're excited that's doing well. So thank you, guys.
The second episode's a hoot.
We had such a good time. I mean, the first episode I thought was great.
Yeah.
We did movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the first movie, but yesterday's topic was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with that one. So go and check out Best Movie, Worst Movie, guys. All right. With that out of the way, let's now move on to our main questions. And how do we select our main questions around here? Well, it's really rather simple. You guys select our main topics by simply hopping online and going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you're there, you'll see a form. Just fill out the form and hit submit, and maybe you will see your topic or question here on The John Campea Show. All right, with that down and out of the way, Ashley, what's our first official topic today?
First topic up is from Patreon supporter Dion Shepard. Hey, John and crew. The Hollywood Reporter came out with an article stating Warner Brothers studio chief Kevin Tsujihara is stepping down. I don't want to get too excited now, but after all of the DCEU nonsense that happened under his reign, I'm glad. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, you guys remember a little while ago, this quote unquote scandal broke out. And here's the basic gist of it. Kevin Tsujihara, CEO and chairman of Warner Brothers Studios. He came out, had an affair a number of years ago with an actress. And there was a report in the Hollywood Reporter alleging that he was helping this actress get roles because of his affair with her. Now, it's important to note that both Kevin Tsujihara and the actress in question both vehemently deny that he ever used their relationship to further or help her career at all. He denies it, which you would expect, but she denies it. Like, she vehemently denies it. that he did anything to help her in that way. But there were the allegations, and it casts a dark cloud over it. Anyway, the chairman and CEO of Warner Media, which is the oversight parent company of Warner, put out this following statement. This is from John Campea, the CEO of Warner Media, who writes, "It is in the best interest of Warner Media, Warner Brothers, our employees, and our partners for Kevin to step down as chairman and CEO of Warner Brothers. Kevin has contributed greatly to the studio's success over the past 25 years, and for that we thank him. Kevin acknowledges that his mistakes are inconsistent with the company's leadership expectations and could impact the company's ability to execute going forward." So that comes from the CEO of Warner Media. So Kevin Tsujihara also put out his own statement, basically echoing the exact same things that are just there. It's like, hey, it's not best for the company for me to still be in here with this scandal sort of thing going on and whatever, I'm stepping down. It is important to keep in mind something. A lot of people who only follow comic book movies, they think of the impending Disney Fox deal, and they think it's all about Disney getting back Fantastic Four and X-Men, when really that has a tiny thing to do with it. Very tiny. We think in terms of Alan Horn, well, wow, he's a real screw-up because he botched the James Gunn thing. When in reality, Alan Horn has been one of the biggest geniuses and biggest success stories in the history of Hollywood. Much bigger picture. And so when a lot of people think of Kevin Tsujihara and Warner Brothers, they just instantly want to think of the DCEU. When in reality, Kevin Tsujihara has been a very good executive for Warner Brothers. I mean, he played a key role in getting the entire Harry Potter franchise up and running. We've got a number of new films coming out pretty soon that he was at the forefront of getting that stuff on Warner Brothers' docket. He's had decades of success working with Warner Brothers. Now, I've had my opinion about whether this scandal should even be a big issue. Like, okay, they had an affair. He denies he used it to help her with her career, and she denies that he used it to help her career. This shouldn't be a scandal. But I get why Warner Brothers and Kevin feel the need to separate at this point, because whether or not it's fair, it is the perception of scandal and all this kind of stuff, and therefore he's stepping down. And it is probably best for him, and it is probably best for the company. Rob, you've been following Warner Brothers for a long time. A guy like Kevin Tsujihara has been so instrumental there. What do you think about him stepping down, the timing of him stepping down, and what's next for Warner Brothers? Where does Warner Brothers go from here?
Well, Warner Brothers has traditionally always had long-standing relationships with talent. They've cultivated, Clint Eastwood's been there, Malpaso, Clint Eastwood's company's been there for 40 years or something. Yeah. And I don't share the optimistic appraisal of Tsujihara's reign. He came from their amusement park division, basically, and took over the studio. I don't think he had the best run as the steward of Warner Studios. I think that he was more of a corporate suit, and I think the people that run studios, the effective studio heads, really have these relationships with the talent, as opposed. He was much more of a corporate suit. He answered to his corporate overlords, and I understand that. And that's, look, they're replacing all the creatives at HBO with AT&T executives. The people that have turned to because they want to be like Netflix. And it's the corporate culture and the entertainment business are fundamentally at odds with one another, in the sense that creatives have to be given a certain amount of leeway to work. And I just don't know if Tsujihara was the best shepherd of the movie business. Whereas, we'll see if Walter Hamada's reign, they've sort of got an interim board now running who's going to run the studio. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But really, you really need people at the head of a studio that are somewhat visionary, and they can really make decisions from their gut. And so often now we see, because these companies are run by corporations, absolutely they are, and they're being, I think they're becoming too corporatized, and the real successful studio executives need a little bit of they need a little wider berth to work. And I hope that Warner Brothers finds somebody who's like that, and not just somebody who is a corporate minion, because that doesn't work.
And we'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up again. The one big blotch, I think, on Kevin Tsujihara's rep over the last couple years came around this situation with Justice League. If you remember the reports that, it was reported that Joss Whedon, who had taken over Justice League, had a lot to do and a lot to reshoot. They had requested to push the release date into the following year. Now, the reports that then came out was that Kevin Tsujihara denied their request to delay the release of the film so they can get it finished properly, because with the impending AT&T takeover, he was worried that if he's not going to be on board with the company anymore, if his position gets pushed out or whatever, that whatever box office Justice League makes would not reflect on his bonus, which was considerable. And therefore, that is why he and a couple of other executives forced the filmmakers to keep the release date in the year that it was coming out, despite the fact that it left Joss Whedon and a lot of guys, whatever. That was a big black eye.
Yeah.
That was a big black eye on that one, because that was a situation of a guy putting his interests in front of the interests of the movie and in front of the interests of the company and in front of the interest of their employees. And that was an unfortunate thing. Other than that, not a lot. I'll tell you what though, Robert, you and I are going to CinemaCon in Las Vegas. And every year at CinemaCon, I actually think this picture was probably taken at CinemaCon. Kevin Tsujihara gets up at CinemaCon during the Warner presentation, because every studio goes and does this big 2-hour presentation, and they show like tons of footage of all the movies they have coming up that year, and they give a State of the Union of their studio and all this kind of stuff. And, Bob Iger shows up, and Kevin Tsujihara every year gets up there, and it's going to be an awkward presentation for Warner Brothers at this point. Like, I don't know.
Bob was telling me yesterday.
Is that what Bob was telling you yesterday?
Yeah.
With you being on the cell phone with him? So anyway, there you go, guys. Listen, what do you think about Kevin Tsujihara stepping down from his position there at Warner Brothers? Where do you think Warner Brothers goes from here? Jump down in the comments section and let me know your thoughts. With that down and out of the way, Ashley, what is our next email today?
Next up is from Arjun. I was wondering if Rotten Tomatoes can team up with Fandango and other similar sites so that the user reviews are collected directly from the people who have bought tickets for the movie. So like Uber does, the user will get pop up after the particular showing is done, and they can just select their score and maybe leave a review too. This way, for sure, even every review came with a ticket purchase, and I would assume it's going to increase reviews received as well. Thanks.
Rob, you and I were talking the other day about, Rotten Tomatoes has announced they're looking at ways to legitimize their user reviews, because their user reviews are a mess. I mean, they can be gamed. We've seen it happen over and over again. Tons of people register, scores for movies they've never even watched because of a political agenda they have, and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So you and I talked yesterday about some ideas. I had the idea, it's an extreme one, but hey, if you want to register a score under the user reviews, you have to put up a picture of you first, holding your ID and holding your movie ticket, or something along those lines. What was your idea, Rob, that you had pitched to you? I remember I really liked the idea you had.
Well, I was saying charge a membership fee,
right?
And you have to pay money and then you become a reviewer. I mean, sure, you could still assuming you could game the system, but you'd have to pay money to do so. And then, you let other reviewers, like on Amazon, was this review helpful? And other people can upvote it or downvote it. I mean, I think that would help. That might help. Or my friend Mike Bawden suggested a barcode system or something where you have people that actually are given an ID and they're held accountable. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, considering Rotten Tomatoes is owned by a company, and why shouldn't people be held accountable? People on the internet have to start being, it's a public space, and people need to be held accountable.
Well, here's the interesting thing. What a bunch of people then wrote on the show yesterday, and we covered this in my companion video that went up earlier this morning. A lot of people started firing the suggestion, and I think this is the best suggestion I've heard so far. And that suggestion was, Rotten Tomatoes is now owned by Fandango. So Fandango is a movie ticket purchasing app. Why not just have the user reviews score on Rotten Tomatoes be a score registered by people on Fandango who actually bought tickets?
I think that's a great idea.
It's a brilliant idea. Like, so if now, does that limit it a little bit to people who use Fandango? Sure. Yeah, that's fine. But yet the idea is you use your phone, I buy my ticket, and then once the date has passed for my movie ticket, it can now do a little pop-up. What did you think about I don't know, what movies out there right now? What am I forgetting? I can't even think of a movie
Captain
that's
Marvel.
Sure. What did you think of so if you bought a ticket, once the date of your ticket passes, a little pop-up will come up on your Fandango app saying, "Hey, what did you think of Captain Marvel?" And you give it a score, and that gets aggregated over to the Rotten Tomatoes for user reviews.
Love it.
People who actually saw, because you know what? Amazon has a little bit something like this. Amazon, you can go onto Amazon and write reviews for things, right? But Amazon has an extra little thing on there now under the user reviews. It says verified purchase.
Yep.
Which means if you actually, so you can't just jump on and, well, you can just jump on and write, "I hate this golf ball," even though you've never actually owned the golf ball. But if you've bought the golf ball on Amazon, it will put under that verified purchase, this guy actually bought this, and you can trust a review. I think this is the perfect solution to this. I think it's perfect. The one downside is that it does limit a little bit who's doing it because it's only going to be limited to people who use Fandango. I don't use Fandango all that often because I usually just use my AMC app. And so that's fine. So I personally, for some movies, won't be able to register a user review. Oh, well, big deal, not a big deal. But a lot of people use Fandango, and they'll be completely impartial. They're just average film fans using their thing, but at least you know these user reviews you're going to be seeing and the score you're going to be seeing are coming from people who actually bought tickets and actually went to the movie. And I see that as nothing but a good thing. Do you see any other potential? Like, the one drawback I'm coming up with is that it limits how many people could actually participate in it. But do you see any other drawbacks to that, Rob?
No, and I look, I thought it was great that you brought up the idea of the verified purchase from Amazon. I as soon as I read, because I do read product reviews on Amazon, and I ignore anyone who's not a verified purchaser, because what do they know anyway? And why are they reviewing a product that they haven't recently purchased? So I think what you're saying is tremendous. I think it's absolutely an elegant idea, and it makes sure that the public knows that, okay, the people from now on that are reviewing have actually seen the movie in question. And it alleviates the problem they're having of people going on before a movie comes out and trashing it just to do so.
And I like the fact that they brought up in there the whole Uber app too. Like this, it's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Uber, once you've taken your ride, I can't just jump on Uber and go, well, I know this guy, Ted, and I hate that guy's guts, and I know he's an Uber driver now. I'm just going to find him on my Uber app and give him negative reviews because I hate that guy. No. Once you've used Ted as a driver, once you've had a ride with Ted, then it gives you the option to rate and review Ted as a driver. I love that. Ashley,
I do too.
Do you have, first of all, what do you think about applying like an Uber or an Amazon kind of model, something like this? And do you ever use things like Atom tickets, Fandango, things like that to buy your tickets? Is that something that would affect you very much?
I use Fandango every time I'm looking up where the closest movie is to my house. So I am constantly on Fandango. I've occasionally bought tickets through Fandango, and now I did MoviePass for a little bit. Now that I don't have that, I think I've bought maybe 1 or 2 tickets through Fandango. But I usually buy my tickets. I just walk up to the theater and get them on the spot. But I think it's a great idea. I want this to be, I want to tweet this out and make them do it. It's perfect. It's really a great partnership.
And it would be great for Fandango, right? Because it might actually encourage some people to use Fandango to buy their movie tickets if they want to participate and become a standard reviewer on that. I just don't see the lose here other than the fact that it limits those who can use it, but you can use it if you want, and it just ensures, like, who doesn't? I'd be very suspect of anybody who says, I don't want user reviews to verify that their people actually saw the movie.
Yeah.
Like, why not? So there's somebody with an agenda there. All right, Ashley, what is our next email today?
Next one up is from Olaf Lezenak. Hey, John, love your show. Watched you back in your AMC days. Just yesterday, I read an article on Collider mentioning the producer of Bumblebee saying the sequel will be more like the Michael Bay movies. I only have one question. What? the F?
Yeah, so we talked yesterday a little bit about the fact that Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who is not the producer of the Transformers movies, but one of the producers of the Transformers movies, was talking about how, as well as a Bumblebee sequel being made, which we're being told is a reboot of the universe, that they're also developing a follow-up film to Transformers: The Last Knight, which was one of the biggest hot steaming piles of garbage I've ever had the displeasure of witnessing in a cinema. And we asked, my God, why? Now, on top of all that, de Bonaventura also went on to say, talking about the Bumblebee 2, he was talking about Bumblebee 2 specifically, and he said the following: several lessons have come out of this. One is that we have the freedom to tell almost any story. The other is that how strongly the audience identified with the strength of character and emotion. I know the next Transformer, our attempt anyway, is to sort of do a fusion of Bumblebee and the Bay movies, a little more Bayhem. So that's from producer Lorenzo de Bonaventura talking about Bumblebee 2. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind here. Number one, Lorenzo de Bonaventura is a friend of Michael Bay. So there's that. But number two, I know the first reaction to hearing that is probably a little bit of panic. I understand that the first reaction to trying to infuse a little bit more Michael Bay into Bumblebee, what? I understand that completely. But I think what he is ultimately saying here is just that, hey, yeah, we can take what we did well with Bumblebee. We can take the emotion, we can take the heart, we can take the character development, we can take all that really good stuff. But hey, we could stand to notch up the action a little bit. We could probably stand a little bit more action. Take a little bit more of what the Bay films did well and apply a little bit of that over here while maintaining the things that made Bumblebee so good. Now, I've always said this. The problem with the Transformers movies is not that the action has been bad. It's just that 90% of the time, the action has had no narrative purpose. And I've always said, without narrative purpose, action is just visual noise. So when there's big, giant robots that you can barely identify, swooping and swinging, and you don't care about those characters on screen fighting, you don't really know why they're fighting in the first place, and you know there's not really going to be any consequences to this fight, then the action, it's devoid of anything to get me invested in it, and it's just visual noise. But if you can maintain, Robert, that heart of Bumblebee and add in a little bit of that Michael Bay action, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I don't think the two things have to be mutually exclusive. You hear about this. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the difference with Bumblebee is the people, the human element seemed far more genuine than we've seen in the previous Transformers movies. I mean, even the first Transformers movie, I read an article somewhere about this. The film, Michael Bay's Transformers movies had a crassness to them. I mean, the way Megan Fox was sort of, look, don't get me wrong. I love my objectification shots of Megan Fox, but they don't really fit ultimately they were leering. When you first see Megan Fox, draped over the hood of a car, that's fine, but it's a little adolescent boy. It didn't foster any kind of, I mean, there was no level of innocence. It should have been like the boy in his car story, how the boy discovers his car, and they flipped it with Bumblebee. It became a girl in her car story, and it seemed far more realistic and grounded in the real world as opposed to a bunch of movie cliches, if that makes any sense. And I really think that the human element was beefed up in Bumblebee, and it really worked. The same way it worked in E.T., you had a real sense that these were much more realistic people than they were in the Bay movies. I mean, everybody, the military guys were sort of cliched. Shia LaBeouf was kind of cliched. His parents were a cliche. and when you amp up the human element and make it more realistic, give it a little bit more verisimilitude, my favorite word.
There it is.
You can do both because, like you just said, you make the human element more real, then pump up the action and go bring in the Bayhem. But when real human beings are the ones that are threatened as opposed to archetypes or cliches, you care a lot more. We have to care a lot more about the people in these movies, and then you can get away with far more Bayhem.
Because you know what? Let's look at a movie like Alita Battle Angel, right? It's got Bayhem kind of action in it. It really does have Bayhem kind of action. But the difference between the Bayhem in Transformers and the Bayhem in Alita is that I cared about Alita. I really liked Alita. They got you attached to Alita.
Yes, they did.
And so because I cared about her, that when the action's going on, I'm invested in it. And a lot of times, like, even what should have been a great scene, I can't remember which of the garbage Transformers movies finally brought in Grimlock and had the T-Rex. And there was that shot of Optimus Prime.
I think it was the fourth movie.
Might have been the fourth one. Optimus Prime
Age of
riding
Extinction.
this giant T-Rex Transformer, right? That should have been one of the greatest cinematic moments of my life.
Yep.
But I didn't give a shit what was going on in that movie by that point, and I couldn't care less. It's like, wait a minute, why is this Dinobot suddenly there? Like they just kind of shoot her. Optimus Prime. Oh, look, Dinobots, you're with me. And then it's like, and I didn't care. So I think what you said is exactly right, Rob. You add those elements that you were talking about, and have that as the underpinning to a little bit of Bayhem, suddenly that Bayhem becomes meaningful and you get invested in it. And when you're invested, you care a lot more and it's more exciting and it elevates everything. But without it, you get Transformers The Last Night.
Right. And then also the action becomes, like you said, it just becomes visual noise.
Yeah.
You just don't care unless you're following human beings through these stories. I mean, it's cool to watch robots beat on each other, but it only lasts for as long as, you really have an emotional investment as a viewer. And ultimately, if you don't, then who cares? It's just, you're just listening to a heavy metal riff without any decent chorus, or any kind of, there's no anthem. You've got to have you've got to have words to shout. You can't just listen to somebody shredding a guitar for 3.5 minutes. You've got to have some kind of lyrics. You got to have like Maiden-esque lyrics that you can sing.
Maiden-esque. And you know what? And I think as much as I love Bumblebee, and I love Bumblebee, you could make a fair, constructive piece of criticism to say it did lack a little bit in the action department.
Sure.
It started off with a bang on Cybertron. Great. And there was a decent end battle sequence, yes. Not a lot in between. It could have probably used a little bit more action. So honestly, I hear those, unlike the let's make a follow-up to The Last Night, which freaks me out, this comment doesn't freak me out because to me, it's just like, yeah, if you keep those core elements that made Bumblebee great and add a little bit of Michael Bay-isms to it, that could work.
I mean, the movies
and I'm okay with it.
called Transformers.
Yes.
You want to see transforming Transformers. You want to see robots in disguise, robots out of disguise, and robots kicking ass. Let's not forget our core values. And Bumblebee might have strayed a little too far in one direction, so I see no problem to pull it back.
Yeah, me either. All right. What is our next email today?
Next email is from Daniel, the movie critic. Box Office Pro now projected Detective Pikachu, and they project it to track $75 to $90 million opening weekend. I have a little hard time believing it because it will come out on Endgame's third weekend, and it will still be dominating and breaking records by then. So I want to know your thoughts on DP tracking 75 to 90 million or higher, and can these projections defeat Endgame third week to be number one at the weekend box office?
Well, first of all, holy crap! And by the way, Box Office Pro, I should point this out. Box Office Pro was the first place to come out to project 160 million opening weekend for Captain Marvel, when a lot of the other places were coming out and projecting 100 to 115 million. And Box Office Pro came pretty damn close. So now they're projecting a Detective Pikachu movie, coming in at $75 to $90 million opening weekend. Who would have thought of that 6 months ago? Oh, we're going to do a Detective Pikachu movie. And it's going to open to $75 to $90 million. Are you kidding me? So that's amazing. Now, at first, if you guys are like me, when you read that question, it's like, will it be the movie to dethrone Endgame? Your first reaction is probably pshaw. But think about it for a second. Let's, for argument's sake, say that Avengers Endgame opens with the exact same record-breaking opening weekend that Avengers Infinity War did and makes like 250 million, just for argument's sake. Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit less, but let's, for argument's sake, say 250 million. Okay. If such a movie then takes like a 60% drop, which a lot of these MCU movies have. On its second weekend, you're looking at it making $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Pikachu comes out the following week after that. So it'll be on the third weekend of Avengers Endgame. Assume another 50% drop. Okay, now you're talking about Avengers Endgame in its third weekend, maybe making 50, 60, 65, maybe 70. First of all, how crazy is to talk about a movie that maybe is making 50 or 60 million dollars on its third freaking weekend? Anyway.
Dude, that's crazy.
It's insane. So, honestly speaking, I think it is very possible that Detective Pikachu could knock Avengers Endgame out of the number one spot in just its third week. Well, just its third weekend. Most movies are kicked out of the number one spot by their third weekend.
Yeah.
But this is really true. And listen, yes, Avengers Endgame is going to be huge. It's going to be massive and all that kind of stuff. But by the time we get to its third weekend, it's not making $100 million on its third weekend. Right? So if Pikachu can come in at like 70 plus, and we've had many weekends at the box office, Rob, where multiple films have made $90 million or higher. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So I'll tell you what, not only is it possible, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Detective Pikachu will be the number one film at the box office by the time this thing comes out. I really think it will. Now let's just look at this thing quick. I forgot to cue this graphic up, but let's just take a look at this, Rob. So on the second weekend of Avengers Endgame, we've got The Intruder. That's the Dennis Quaid film. That's not going to be any kind of big box office power. We've got the comedy Long Shot. That's going to make some money. That's the new Seth Rogen one with Charlize Theron. Looks pretty good. We got the new animated film Ugly Dolls, which I have to say is going to be the greatest motion picture of all time because it's a Hasbro property.
I like that, though.
Hey,
I like Ugly Dolls.
It's a Hasbro property, and half of my household income comes from Hasbro, so I am telling you it's going to be the greatest motion picture of all time. So, again, nothing big here that's going to really contend all that much with Endgame. But then we go into the next one. By the way, The Hustle comes out as well. That's the new Anne Hathaway comedy.
The remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yes, which I don't know why. I don't like the trailers for that, but every time I'm in a theater and that trailer plays, the audience is laughing their heads off, and I'm like, what? But they are. The audience seem to like it. And Detective Pikachu, and then the Diane Keaton film Palms. I'm telling you, the weekend of Friday the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, the number one film at the box office is going to be Detective Pikachu. And there's no way I would have said that prior to seeing the Detective Pikachu trailers. No way. I was like, come on, a Pikachu movie. But these trailers have been nuts. And again, the Avengers and MCU movies, regardless of how big they are, they still follow the rules of they drop 50 to 60% on this first weekend. It drops, 55 to 45% on its second weekend. And if it does open at 250, 260, 270, and if Pikachu can get that 75 to $90 million, then just follow the math. Pikachu's going to be the number one film that weekend. That's what I'm calling right now. Rob, you've had some success recently calling these sorts of things. How do you see this playing out?
I'm 100% with you in agreement. I mean, the new Pika Pika is going to be the new cha-ching that weekend. Let me tell you.
There's your new t-shirt. Pika Pika is the new cha-ching.
It's going to open to number one. It's going to be huge. Look, if you get me interested in seeing a Pokemon movie, I mean, I was a little too old when the Pokemon craze hit. I did play Pokemon Go for a while just because I was the whole idea of a augmented reality game I enjoyed. I didn't understand. I live by Griffith Park. Why did not more Pikachus, or why did more Pokemon not live in Griffith Park? I didn't understand, but I'm in, and I think that they've done a great job with this franchise. Pokemon, there's a whole group of people that are now, in their 20s who grew up with Pokemon. I think it's going to be huge because it's our new Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Ashley, let me ask you this. You have not, it is the weekend of May 10th. You have not yet seen Avengers Endgame. And you have two friends call you.
For shame.
One says, Ashley, come with me tonight to go see Avengers Endgame. And another friend saying, Ashley, come with me tonight to see Detective Pikachu. Honestly, which one are you going to go see?
Endgame. Like, absolutely not even a question in my
You
mind.
stuck up.
There you go.
No, like, I mean, for sure. Maybe Pikachu just isn't as it's nostalgic for some people, for younger 20-year-olds, but it's not nostalgic to me. And I I'd see it at
But
my
you
house.
are 20.
Yeah,
I was gonna say you're so
I'm 20,
old.
You
guys.
are
I'm
20.
Yeah, let's just keep that. But yeah, I would see it maybe, at my house, but I personally probably will not go to the theater for Pikachu, but I will go to the theater for Endgame for sure. So
Yeah.
that's
So
just me.
I think bottom line is Endgame can break all the records. And still, Pikachu will still be, I think, the number one film that weekend. If that's true or not, we will find out. What do you guys think? Do you think, come that weekend, that Detective Pikachu will dethrone Endgame as the number one film at the box office in its third weekend? Yes or no? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thought. Okay, with that down, let's move on to the final main topic today. What's our final topic?
All right, last one up is from Sarah B. John, I just saw that Denis Villeneuve has started shooting his Dune movie and that Hans Zimmer is composing the music for the movie.
Woo!
I didn't think I could get more excited for this movie, and yet here we are. What are your thoughts on the situation?
Well, I mean, I do have my own thoughts, but let's be honest here. The guy whose thoughts I really want on this is pictured right beside me, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Okay,
Dude.
first of all, it's shooting. I have this phrase I've been using for a couple of years now, Robert. I call it the tangibilization, because a lot of times they talk about movies and sometimes they do happen, sometimes they don't. Even though you know that they happen, they don't quite feel real yet. We've been talking about a Denis doing this Dune movie for years. For years we've been talking about this movie. And to hear the words, it's now shooting, it just brings about that tangibilization of it to me, to hear that Hans Zimmer is doing it. And the first thing I thought was, I got to hear what Robert's feeling right now. So Robert, what are you thinking about all this?
Well, I am a big first of all, to address the question, I'm a huge Hans Zimmer fan. The first time I ever recognized or noticed his name was in a late 80s movie called Paper House that was directed by Bernard Rose, who directed the first Candyman. And that was the first time I heard a Hans Zimmer score. And during the 90s, like, he scored movies like Crimson Tide, which I loved. But I've really sort of loved how he's gone in, and I loved his Dark Knight scores that he did with James Newton Howard, and he's really become a favorite of mine. And a lot of people like Bear McCreary studied under him, and so he's become a force. And people have talked about, well, he works by committee sometimes, but like his score for Inception, I could listen to forever. He did the bow, that whole thing. But that's just one component of a movie that I think, as far as I'm concerned, because I love the source material so much, the talent that they've organized behind the camera and in front of the camera on this movie, to me, is so astonishing. It's whether it's a who's who of actors, whether it's Denis Villeneuve, who directed Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, which I'm convinced is a modern masterpiece that gets better every time I see it. I can't imagine a better scenario to bring a new take on Frank Herbert's seminal science fiction novel from the mid-'60s to life. I mean, Dune is one of the classics of all science fiction canon, and to see it just done in such a grand fashion, it's almost like everybody who had a wish list of how could this movie be the best movie ever made, they've been granted that list. And I think for us, and for me as a lifelong Dune fanatic, I mean, I got it when I was in elementary school from the Science Fiction Book Club. I got Dune, Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune. I can't believe that this is happening. And I always say, we live in wondrous times. Well, this is one of the reasons why, kids. I mean, then again, if this movie isn't, if I don't go into it and walk out of it with a rainbow coming out of my ears, I don't want to set myself or set you viewers up for disappointment. But I do think what we're going to get is at least something special. I mean, between Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner, Prisoners,
Prisoners.
I just think we're going to get something that we don't see very often in this space, so to speak. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. In the year 10,191 is when Dune takes place, actually.
The thing we got to keep our eye on here is, does the same fate befall this Dune that happened to Blade Runner 2049? That was a film whose marketing. First of all, they overestimated, I believe. The studio in the first place overestimated how much of a hunger there was for that movie. I think that's clear.
Which they shouldn't have, because it wasn't a hit.
Right. I mean, it did gain a lot of traction over the years as a cult classic and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing they did too, and I complained about this from day one, when you watch the marketing of Blade Runner 2049, they never told you what the movie was about. Right. They just never told anybody what the movie was about.
I don't think the marketing people knew what it was about.
No, I mean, they showed, look, here's Ryan Gosling. Ooh, look, there's Harrison Ford. Great. What's going on though? What's this about? Just tell me what it's about. And I always used to say it's akin to this, going into Best Buy, and they're having a big white box on the shelf that said, on sale, $29.95. Get it now. I'm like, well, I pick up the box. It's just a white box. What's in it? Well, we can't tell you that. Then it wouldn't be a surprise. Yeah, but you're asking me to give you $30. Shouldn't I know what's in it? Nah, you don't want it spoiled for you. Just give us the $30 and take it home and open it up and you'd be surprised. And that's what they did with Blade Runner 2049. What's your movie about? We don't want to tell you and spoil it, but you're asking me to pay you $15 for a movie ticket. So shouldn't you tell me a little bit about it? Nah. And that's what they did. And I really hope that, because there are some similarities here, right, Rob? Like, you're talking about a franchise, a property that has classic status and all this kind of stuff, and going back to it, and we'll have a core group of followers ready to go with it right away. But you got
my Spinner, my Ryan Gosling car.
There it is.
Sweet.
So much I love it.
I mean, I just hope they realize that they can't market this film the way they marketed Blade Runner 2049, because I like that movie and it lost a lot of money.
No, it did. And I didn't understand. Like, look, I think it's fantastic. We got a movie that costs $180 million, a Blade Runner sequel. It's incredible. And the film is an astonishing vision. And the more I watch it, the more I love it. Like, honest to God, it's got one of the greatest sound mixes ever done for a movie. And I do think it's a masterpiece. But Dune is it is one of the great science fiction novels of all time. It has been adapted twice before, once for television, and then famously the David Lynch film in 1984 that wasn't great. They had to cut down a lot of it. But I think in this day and age where we've seen great fantasy literary adaptations now, like Lord of the Rings, like Game of Thrones, and we've seen, everyone loves a great science fiction epic. This is a little heady. It does require, it is very intelligent fare. And it really speaks, by the way, Dune has a lot to do with our world now today. And I really think that they're gonna really tie that in and make this movie as relevant as they can for modern audiences. And I'm hoping that it's great. I really am. But this is a heady, smart, intelligent science fiction property that has a lot to say about our current state of affairs here on old planet Earth. So I'm really hoping, and if they realize the visual effects, which they couldn't realize back in 1984, you've got giant sandworms, you've got battles between the Harkonnen and the Atreides, you've got the Padishah Emperor pulling the strings behind, you've got the Princess Irulan, you've got Duke Leto and Baron Harkonnen. I mean, there's so much cool stuff in this that I'm excited, dude. I'm excited.
All right, guys. Well, that will do it for all of our main topics today. What do you guys think? Are you guys excited for Dune? That's finally shooting. Hans Zimmer, who I will always be grateful to for the amazing Man of Steel score.
Oh, yeah.
Bum, bum. I still, at least once a week, I play that music when I'm in the shower. I really do. Just gets the blood pumping. It gets me ready for the day, man.
Not at the gym?
Nope. I just play it in the shower. Gets me going for my day, dude.
I sing the song from Arthur. When you're caught between the moon and New York City. When you get caught
between the moon and New York City.
That's my shower song.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's time for us to go over to our live questions now. You guys have been, a bunch of you have been firing a whole ton of live questions. Let's jump over to those right now. Ashley, what do we got in the live questions?
All right. Well, I just want to say that I personally liked the new Blade Runner more than the old one, and I don't care.
Me too.
Who has a problem with that?
I do too.
I think there's an argument to be made.
There is, but I just wanted to shout that out because I've been holding that back for a long time. All right. Brian Esparza is up first. He says Disney officially has Fox.
Nope, they don't. I know there's a bunch of headlines running around saying that, but it's not true. The deal becomes official tomorrow. Tomorrow is when it's done. It's a done deal. 12:02 a.m. tomorrow. That's when it's done. It ain't done yet, but we're just a day away, guys. We're only a day away. Okay, what's next?
John Durang, from the feel of the new Toy Story 4 trailer, I will be a man crying like a baby.
Yeah, I'm going to say, look, I said a little earlier, I wasn't wowed by the trailer. I didn't get my enthusiasm up a lot that much, but you're not wrong. You can feel there's an emotional tsunami coming. And between that and when Tom Hanks talked about how everybody, he couldn't look at anybody as he was reading the final lines in the sound booth of the movie and all that kind of stuff. They said it was an all emotional mess. Get ready for cry time. Cry time is coming, everybody. Just get ready for it. It's coming. All right, what's next?
Dim Sum 05. Off topic, I just want to say how proud I am to have people like Dan Morell in film fandom. He just spent 30 minutes giving trolls the benefit of the doubt and still debunked their sensationalized stories.
Yeah, I basically Dan, who obviously I know. Dan is one of the finest guys
absolutely
in the online space. He's a great guy. He just basically made, and I don't know if they put it out yesterday or today, but he made this video that's basically everything I've been telling you guys. But he put it in just one big video, laid it out about, look, these trolls are saying the movie needed 750 to break even. Here's why that's not true. There are trolls saying Disney bought their own tickets. Here's exactly why you shouldn't believe that.
Yeah, what division is that of Disney? The ticket.
Yeah, I don't know, because that's the division. I want to get to know the people in that division. I want to know the people.
$16 million they spent buying tickets for their own movie.
Yeah. So Dan Murrell very articulately sits down and lays out why, and he talks about, guys, when you see somebody say something like that, what's the source? Where have you heard that before? But he did such a great job of very articulately and meticulously just kind of laying it out.
It's really good.
It is the ultimate in one package, the ultimate destruction of all the troll stuff that people who've been trying to attack and go after Captain Marvel and trying to paint negative pictures and all that. And he's done a great job, as he always does. Dan always does a really good job on stuff. And again, he's one of the more articulate, nicer guys in the space. So yeah, if you have a chance to go and see that video, guys, go and check that out. And whenever you see these misled people who have bought into these lies that people try to propagate around, just point them to this Dan Murrell video, and it pretty much settles it. It puts it to rest. He does a great job.
If I could just say, a lot of these kinds of things that rise up are completely based on weird fanboy conjecture that have no understanding of the actual business. It all comes out of the minds of what fans think, which is so strange to me because there's nothing to do with the actual business of Hollywood. And it drives me crazy seeing these kinds of weird theories that are so weird and one-sided and have nothing to do with business. It ain't show friends, it's show business, kids.
There's this great
it ain't show fans, it's show business.
One of the great things that Dan does in the video too is like, okay, this whole notion that Disney bought tickets, a lot of that all came down to this one guy who put out a tweet saying, I'm sitting here, it's opening night, I'm sitting here in this movie theater for Captain Marvel, and he took a picture and said, the theater's empty. The theater's empty, right? Well, so then what Dan does, okay, who's this guy? And then he goes and pulls up all these older tweets from the guy trashing Captain Marvel and all the agenda political BS stuff long before the movie came out. And Dan's like, we're supposed to believe this guy bought tickets to opening night for Captain Marvel? Like this guy who's been trash talking Captain Marvel and saying all this sexist stuff and all this whatever. We're supposed to believe that this guy saw that. And then he's just some random guy who put that up. And then everybody ran with it. Yes, this is proof that Disney bought tickets. No, they didn't. And anyway, it's not just that. Dan actually walks it through in a very logical, sound way. You should definitely check out that video when you get a chance because he did a really, really nice job on it. All right, what's next?
Oh, we live in some strange times. Sidious Swift. Howdy. Thanks for the effort y'all put into the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Sidious. You know, look, for good or for bad, and the people who work with me, and Rob will attest to this, it is my highest priority. I am never cease to be floored and honored and feel the weight of the responsibility that you guys choose to spend time hanging out with us every day, talking about movies. And I will lose sleep at night trying to think of ways to make it a better experience for the viewers. Now, I don't always do a great job. I sometimes make huge mistakes. Sometimes I'm sure there's things that other people, if they were in my place, could be doing better than I do. But I can tell you 100%, I will always try my best to make this show, since you guys invest your time watching it, I owe it to you to make the best show that I can. And whatever I can do, I will do. And again, I'll fail, I'll succeed here and there, but it is what I try to do. So thanks so much for that, Sidious. I really appreciate that. Okay, what's next?
Paul, you missed my super chat question from yesterday in the companion video about your Revenge of the Sith review from 2005. Opinion change on the movie?
I did not see that, Paul, but I have been asked this question about, I don't know, 40,000 times, and I've answered about 40. But basically, it's this. I am such a born and bred in my DNA of Star Wars that the first time I saw each of the prequel movies, I basically tricked myself into liking them. And then by the time we got to Revenge of the Sith, I didn't trick myself as much, but I realized immediately upon seeing the film for a second time, this movie's not that good. And then I see it for a third time, it's like, no, this movie's trash. Which was completely the opposite reaction of like when I went to go see The Force Awakens. Like me and John Schnepp used to run across the street into the AMC Burbank 16 just in the afternoon so we can watch The Force Awakens again. And every time I watched that movie, it got better and better and better to me. Unlike, say, something like Revenge of the Sith, that every time I saw it, I realized this movie's horrible. And it just got worse and worse and worse every time I watch it. So anyway, there's that. All right, what's next?
Technovine, big clue here. The Endgame trailer posted on Marvel's IG account shows a better angle of Scott seeing the posters as he drags along Hank's lab, with right hand.
I don't know if that was his hand or just the case that Hank was using when they put Scott into the quantum realm at the end of Ant-Man 2. So I don't know. I'd have to go check that out. Rob, are you familiar with that? Do you know what he's talking about?
And look, I hate to say it because I've become an Avengers Endgame theory junkie, and that is true. He does have Hank's lab, and apparently, there was this big leak from some Chinese site. Somebody wrote in Chinese, and no one had read it before, but now it's like 70 pages long, and it's got all these spoilers, and it sounds true to me. And I watch the Everything Always video, and I listen to that, and I wish John, I've got a problem. I need to go to is there Endgame Theories Anonymous, like Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I need to go because my Endgame theory, I'm shaking and I'm quaking and I'm just jittery.
Just 36 days to go, man. Just 36 days to go.
I can't handle it. I need a chip for every day I go without reading a theory.
What's next?
Give Luigi a ring. Hey guys, I saw a story that the Batman will be set in the 90s. Is this a good way of changing the actor whilst keeping the character in the DCEU?
I really don't know if it is or isn't. Anything can work and anything cannot work. Hence, Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone. And I don't know for sure that this thing's going to take place in the 90s. That's been a popular theory going around, but I don't know that that's the case. If it does, it really kind of reemphasizes their standalone nature of their movies these days. But it could be. I mean, they could execute that way, Rob.
Yeah, look, if you set it in the 90s, then you have a problem in that. Then it's like, if you're going to make a Batman movie today, he's now how old?
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
I mean, if it's set in Batman's past, I think that's good. But if you root it in Batman doesn't take place in our world. Right. So I mean, Captain Marvel can use 90s nostalgia. That's fine. But I would prefer, we never knew exactly when Christopher Nolan's Batman movies took place. Where exactly is the prison that Bane grew up in and escaped from? You don't really need to know. Once those details are locked down, then you're stuck. And when you're trying to come up with a continuity, you run into problems. But I think keeping the Batman movies outside of real world continuity is probably for the best.
All right, what's next?
Daryl Best Wadley, better villain, Tobias Wells or Wilson Fisk?
Tobias Whale is a great villain in Black Lightning, but it's Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the Wilson Fisk from Daredevil, it's Wilson Fisk, right, Rob?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, easy. Yeah, and I love Tobias. Love him, but it's Wilson Fisk. All right, what's next?
Terry Mosley sends in a super chat.
Oh, thanks, Terry.
Christopher Benson, The Matrix turns 20 years old this month. I remember seeing it in a theater and being captivated by the visuals. That lobby shootout was ridiculous.
Listen, a lot of people forget today, but when that movie was coming out, nobody cared. Nobody cared. Because it looked like another just kind of throwaway. It's Keanu Reeves.
And he had done that terrible cyberpunk movie, Johnny Mnemonic, that was directed by Robert Longo. And you're like, what?
Nobody cared. And then the movie came out. And it's like, wait, what? And it blew all of us away. It's insane. He doesn't look more than 1 week older than when he was in that movie 20 years ago.
I know, dude.
It is crazy to think it's the 20th year since The Phantom Menace. It's been 20 years.
Wow.
It's been 20 years since The Matrix. I mean, it's kind of nutty, Rob.
You know, it's crazy because Hot Toys recently released a Neo figure from The Matrix.
Nice.
Last month. And then in May, they have a John Wick figure coming out. And you're looking at 20 years between the characters. And aside from facial hair, he looks no different, at least in his Hot Toys incarnation.
He doesn't look any different in person either. All right, what's next?
Magic K, what if Snap didn't happen in Infinity War? Instead, it would be the first scene in Endgame. What are your thoughts on that?
It would have been horrible. It would have been a terrible thing to do because by having the snap there's still some people out there, Rob, who try to argue that, oh, no, Infinity War is not a complete movie. Yes, it is. It's an absolute complete movie. It had a beginning, a middle, and the end. The only difference is the bad guy won. And there was no cliffhanger. Movie's done. He won. Now, you can make more movies after that. That's fine. Avengers won at the end of First Avengers, but there were more stories to tell afterwards. Thanos won. Had you not finished with the snap, then it would have been completely unfair to the audience who just went and invested 2.5+ hours of sitting in the theater to watch your movie. It would have been completely unfair to your audience to do something like that, and to leave it just hanging like that. That's not fair. People come out, spend 2 to 3 hours at your movie. They bought tickets. They planned their evening. So they got the babysitters, blah, blah. You owe them a complete movie, beginning, middle, and end. And I think it would have been a really bad decision to do that. Like, horrendously terrible. What do you think, Rob?
I completely agree. And, the term cliffhanger literally comes from the old 40s serials where our character is left dangling off
from
a cliff
yep.
at the end of the episode. And you're wondering, how the hell are they going to escape from this life or death situation? Well, our characters aren't in any kind of a cliffhanging situation. They were defeated. They were resoundingly defeated, and they lost. The fact that there's a possibility and that we know there's another story to tell where they might be able to reverse what happened is not a cliffhanger. It isn't a cliffhanger. And whenever people have said that to me, it just irks me because we have no clue. The heroes have no clue. There's no dangling off of a cliff. They're going to be morose, and they don't even know where to start, much less where to finish. They have no plan of action. They don't know what's going to occur, and neither do we.
Yeah.
And that's
now a lot
great.
of people will bring up the Lord of the Rings stuff, but the Lord of the Rings, look, while it was part of one continuous story, each film still had a beginning, middle, and end, and there was an ending to each one of them. It's a lot like Star Wars. Like, the first Star Wars ended, but Vader was still alive, the Empire was still out there, all that kind of stuff. So there's more stories to tell, but it was still a beginning, middle, end standalone movie. Had they done that with the snap, like the whole movie's about preventing the snap, that's the whole plot of the movie, and then you get to it and you cut away, I think it would have upset a lot of people, and rightfully so. Okay, what's next?
Alex Pitt, I would highly recommend Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. It's hilarious and creative with its storytelling. The episodes are short, so easy to binge.
Yeah, I thought the trailer for it was garbage. I thought it just looked stupid. So, but I'm hearing from a number of people that's actually not bad.
I'm about halfway through. And
so you have been checking it out?
Yeah, it's really, it's hit and miss. It's all over the place, but there's some really cool stuff. I think it's called Witness. There's an episode called Witness. It's like 17 minutes long. It's really cool.
All right, so
and then there's one about 3 robots wandering around a post-apocalyptic Earth where all the humans are dead. You won't like the ending, John, but Ashley and I will. I love the ending.
If it has, must have something to do with the cat. All right, what's
I'm not
next?
saying.
I'm upset. You think Sony would develop a Spider-Man 2099 film?
Anything's possible. Why not? I mean, clearly they toy with that at the end of the post-credit scene in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's possible. I think they're going to stay a little bit more focused on Miles Morales right now, but I wouldn't discount that at all. It's certainly a possibility. All right, what's next?
Dropkick, Aggie. Your headline's the very best, like no one ever was.
I don't know if that's a compliment or a reference. I can't tell. I don't know if it's a reference to something I should be getting or if it's a compliment. Well, thank you either way. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, what's next?
Rockin' Scotsman. Greetings from Winnipeg. Have you seen Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix? Each episode to be fascinating in their own way.
Again, I just never bothered checking it out because the trailer looked ridiculously dumb to me, but I'm hearing from other people that it's actually not bad, so I'm going to have to check it out at some point. All right, what's next?
Javier Salalas. Hey, John, have you ever read the Demata book series by Darren Shane? If so, would you like to see it adapted on the big screen? Thanks, you're awesome.
I have. I'll be honest with you, I haven't even heard of it. Robert?
No, me neither.
I'll keep my eyes open. All right, what's next?
Miguel Garcia, regarding MCFU, there has not been any fake deaths since Nick Fury in CAWS until Endgame. That's 12 movies. Black Panther and Janet weren't fake deaths.
Yeah, it was. Black Panther was fake. Janet, no, that's fine with Janet. I'll give Janet that. Black Panther was definitely a fake death. It was absolutely was. Just about every movie is a fake death. I mean, come on. And including Infinity War had about 5 billion fake deaths in Infinity War. They just haven't made it official that they're fake yet until we go into it. But absolutely, it's the Marvel Cinematic Fake Death Universe. I mean, that's what it is. That's what they do. They're not the only ones to do it. And I love me some MCU, but they are a little addicted to their fake deaths. It's, I mean, how many times have they killed Loki? Like 3 times now. The Infinity War is their 3rd time killing Loki. And now he's got a show coming, which might be a prequel. Cool. But, I mean, they're just addicted to it. They're really addicted to it. All right, what's next?
Zombatron 5678. How to cancel my Cinemia plan because apparently I am not myself. I'm not even sure how it's possible, especially since I've used it for a year straight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Cinemia. My buddy, Soul Video, who, of course, is the guy who's over there who runs the Fine Brothers, he and I went out last night, and he was like, yeah, he's been using Cinemia for a while. It's like, I had to get rid of it. He goes, they finally this. And then after he canceled it, he got a notification that they were terminating him. And he's like, what? And he got on A-list. But yeah, it's really too bad because my experience with Cinemia has been a good one. But that I can only speak for my experience. A lot of people are having some very bad experiences with it, which is too bad. I always considered them to be, and I still consider them to be, the better alternative to MoviePass. But they're nowhere near as good as A-List. So, yeah, it's too bad so many people are having such a bad experience, Zomatron. All right, what's next?
Willow Yang. Shouldn't Forky be called Sporky?
Well, a 5-year-old girl wouldn't know that. A 5-year-old girl, it's a fork, right? So if the little girl would be a fork, wouldn't it, Rob? Like, she would probably...
I think so. I think that's yes, because spork is a cheeky, it's an adult term.
yeah. Forky is exactly what she would have called it.
It's a fat fork. If I was a kid, I'd be like, this is a fat fork.
All right, what's next?
Zachary Buckler, if the Dune movie or the rumored 2 movies is successful, do you think that they will attempt the sequel books as well? Could be good for franchise material.
Oh, Zachary, everything in this business is about franchise. Yeah. Every movie they make, they deep down wonder what the potential is for franchise. When you take on a project like Dune that has a plethora of stories that follow along and follow after the original story, you know for a fact they're thinking franchise. So absolutely, if Dune can just be profitable, it doesn't even have to be the biggest hit in the world. This doesn't have to be a $700 million movie. But if they can just be profitable, oh yeah, they'll have visions of sugar plums dancing in their heads, thinking of what goes next. So let's say they get through the first Dune ones. Rob, what comes next after that?
Well, if Dune is split into 2 movies, then it's Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, and then we move on to God Emperor of Dune. which is great. And then Herbert wrote Chapter House Dune, and then there's one other. He wrote 6 Dune novels, and then his son Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, who has written countless novels, have continued on. As a matter of fact, Kevin J. Anderson was hired by the filmmakers as a consultant so they could keep the lore straight. And look, they could, if they go into those books that Kevin J. Anderson, you could make Dune movies forever, really. And there's so many stories. I mean, there's so many characters.
Then when they created that world, they could create new original stories if they want to in that universe. I mean,
absolutely,
and the potential's
it
unlimited.
Covers. I mean, the story of Dune covers millennia. It's a long story.
All right, what's next?
Ben Jesusa, I got a feeling Bo Peep will turn out to be a villain. Could be wrong, but the trailer kind of makes it look that way. Also, 38 days till Endgame.
One of the reasons I don't think they're going to do that, Ben, is they already kind of played that card with the big teddy bear that was voiced by the guy who was Beast in X-Men 3 and from Frasier. What's
Kelsey
the actress?
Grammer.
Kelsey Grammer. They kind of played that card already, right? They did that both with the bear, and then they did that with the prospector, and they did that with. So they kind of did that already, where there's a toy that you think is a good toy and is on your side. Turns out they're not. So I don't think they're going to go that direction. Not with Bo Peep. All right, what's next?
Robert Perez, shout out to Ben Rayner, a very active Patreon supporter, always asking great questions, bringing up topics. Good morning, Ashley. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Ashley. And you're right, Robert. Thanks for calling out Ben. Ben is one of the longest. He was one of the original, I think, Patreon supporters ever since I started up the Patreon campaign. He's very, very active in our Facebook group and in our chat boards and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for shouting that out, Robert. I appreciate that. All right, what's next?
Chris Smith, someone compared Ashley to Bran Stark. Ashley plus fetal alcohol syndrome equals Bran Stark. Thank you.
That seems a little harsh. Come on now, Bran's not that.
He didn't compare me directly to Bran. He said that he looks like my little brother. So
yes, and I don't think Bran looks that bad.
Bran's a handsome
alcohol.
There was a season where he
looking
was
a little rough.
Yeah,
Okay.
looking a little rough, but yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right, John Michael Lozada, over under 30%. We get a scene in Endgame of Captain America throwing himself onto an explosive as a reference to the first Cap movie.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of references to old stuff, but that would be a little on the nose, I think. So it's not impossible, but 30 seems to me to be a high number. I'm going to take the under on that. What about you, Rob?
Me too. I mean, remember, that was just a test. There wasn't a real explosive that was going to go off.
But he didn't know that.
He didn't know that. He didn't know that.
All right.
If there was a real explosive and it exploded, Captain America would probably be dead.
Yes, he probably would. Or he might survive it. Who knows? All right, what's next?
Cody Essex, is Guardians of the Galaxy 3 a way for Marvel to fill out next year since they don't seem to have much in production? Maybe that pushed them to rehire James Gunn.
No, look, if they really want to and they were just desperate to do it, they would have hired somebody's cousin to direct it and just move forward. And let's not forget that he still is going to do Suicide Squad first. So Suicide Squad is on his docket first, and once that's all done and that's all wrapped and blah, blah, then he can move on to Guardians. So I really don't think was part of the rationale. I don't think that was in there.
And they're casting Black Widow. They're casting up the Black Widow movie, so we're going to see that. Which is still
not official, but you're right. They're doing a lot of things on this movie.
They officially cast somebody yesterday.
Yeah, but they have not officially greenlit the project yet.
Right.
I've never seen a movie do more active development. Like, they've got writers, directors, cast, everything, but it's not greenlit yet. I mean, it's just a matter of time. It's just a countdown now to when they do that. All right, what's next?
Robert Perez, he tasks me, and I shall have him.
That is...
I'll chase him round the Antares Nebula and round Perdition's Flame. Come on, that's
Khan Noonien Singh from... I was going to say from Space Seed, but it's not from Space Seed. He's from Space
Round the
Seed,
moons of Nibia, round the Antares Maelstrom, and round Perdition's Flame before I give him up.
There you go, Wrath of Khan. All right, what's next?
Jared Vester, what is your most anticipated horror film in 2019 off the top of your head? For me, it would be It, Chapter 2. Loved the first one.
What about you, Ashley?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah, I mean,
the other Ashley.
It's Chapter 2, so I'm very interested in seeing that one. I love the first one too. I guess off the top of my head, that. What else? Us? Yeah.
Yeah, Us looks good. I would have said It Chapter 2 until I started seeing the trailers for Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Oh,
And Pet Sematary,
yeah, that too.
those spots have made me extremely giddy to see it. So I'm going to say Pet Sematary off the top of my head. What about you, Rob?
I want to see Midsummer. Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary's new movie. Because come on, bring on crazy cults in the woods.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
in. I am in.
Okay, what's up next?
Those are 4 good ones. Benny95, remember when Mark R said everybody dies for Avengers Infinity War? What if he's right, except he was referring to Endgame MCU, current timeline, and is somehow wiped out to start over, thus everyone dies?
Again, Benny, you're asking a what if question without actually asking a question. That's just the thing. Guys, if you're going to ask a question that starts with what if, all you're saying with the what if is setting up the scenario. Okay, what if this, okay? Now, what's the question? So it's like asking me, I said this on a show the other day, John, what if this cup was purple? Well, then the cup's purple.
Right.
What you got to do, and what some of you guys are doing correctly now, is saying, John, what if this cup was purple? Would that affect the chances of how long you would own that cup before you threw it out? Like, so ask a what if, but then ask a question attached to the what if. So let me look at that question again. What is he asking? Remember Mark Ruffalo said he dies for Avengers Endgame. What if he's right, except he was referring to Endgame? MCU current timeline is somehow wiped out to start over and everyone dies. Well, then he's talking about Endgame and the MCU current timeline is somehow wiped out and everybody. I don't know what it is you're asking, Benny. What's your question, Rob? How would you? What?
I know. I'm with you. I mean,
this?
then okay, everybody dies. I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, so so the chances that I'm going to actually answer your question here, Benny, are pretty small because I don't know what your actual question is. So I'll just say this: I don't think Mark Ruffalo intentionally. I've never bought into the theory that Mark Ruffalo's that dumb that he drops these things. So I've never bought into that. So I don't even believe that this scenario is real. So so I don't buy into it. But again, if you're looking for something else, I don't know what it is because you didn't actually ask a question in it. So let me know next time, just because you take the time to write it in. So I want to make sure I give you what you're looking for. Just let me know what it is you're looking for. That's all. All right, what's next?
Koba, CBMs need more badass cats. I want Dexstar on screen next.
Well, if they're going to be cannon fodder for the heroes to kill, yes, I'm completely on board for that. Evil cat minions as the cannon fodder for the heroes to gut through. I'm totally open to that. All right, what's next?
Damien Dornford, Bond 25 working title, Eclipse of the Heart. You have the Bonnie Tyler song for the credits.
Is that true? Is
I don't know.
Eclipse?
I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard that either.
I can't imagine that they're going to call a Bond movie Eclipse of the Heart.
Well, no, I think but is it even Eclipse? Is it Bond Eclipse?
I don't know.
Okay, what's next?
That's always a karaoke song of mine. Christopher Brickner, thoughts on critics' social media reactions to Dumbo?
Haven't seen them yet. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen them. I'm curious to see them, though. I've heard some pretty good things from some people, though, that I know that have seen it. But I haven't seen the wider critic reactions yet. Have you seen those yet, Rob?
No, but I'm really anxious. I mean, now I want to go look because I'm kind of looking forward to it. It looks magical, John. It looks magical.
I am too. All right, what's next?
The Halo Brawny. Today I watched my neighbor Totoro for.
It's my neighbor Totoro. He should have written my neighbor.
Okay, my neighbor Totoro for the first time and in a theater. Question: are you a sub or dub person when watching foreign movies?
Dubbed or subtitled, look, it depends. 90% of the time, I am a subtitle person because even if you don't understand the language, you can pick up a lot of what is being communicated in the scene is done in tone and the way something is said. So even if I don't know the language, I can read what the words are and I can hear and interpret the tone and all that kind of stuff. The only time I would have an exception to that is if it's a movie with a high quotient of action going on, and that where pulling my eyes away from the main body of the screen to look down at and read subtext and read the text can be distracting or make you miss something. Some really good horror is a good example of that, where it might actually be better to watch it dubbed. But 90% of the time for me, subtitled is the way to go. What about you, Rob?
I'm with you, but I would even go further. There's only 2 movies that I will watch the dubbed versions: Shogun Assassin, which is essential, and the animated film Fantastic Planet. I used to think I'd watch Godzilla movies dubbed, but then when I started reading the subtitles, when I started getting subtitled Godzilla movies on, they were much better with the subtitles because they're much more erudite.
There's a great example of this, by the way, is a movie called Amélie. Remember the great French film from
one of my favorite movies of all time.
10, 11, 12, 13 years ago? Fabulous. You have to watch it subtitled because, again, so much of what is being done is in the tone of the voice and the expression of the words and all that kind of stuff. And you got to watch that one subtitled. You're just going to miss it entirely.
That might be in my top 10 of all time, actually.
Oh, it's great. It's great. All right, what's next?
Frost, 1977, prayers for the families of the 9 Christians who were murdered in Nigeria this weekend for refusing to convert, 120 now since February, according to the article.
There's a lot of atrocities going on around the world right now, from everything in New Zealand at Christchurch to other places around the world. I mean, it's a nutty time that we live in. And hearts and thoughts out to everybody who suffers as a result of them all around the world. All right, what's next?
Roman Bryant, will we ever see the true Mandarin, or will Guy Pearce always be the MCU version of him?
Well, if you take the Marvel shorts as canon, remember Marvel did a short with Ben Kingsley in prison. Which is great. Yeah, it's awesome. After the events of Iron Man 3, Ben Kingsley is in prison, and somebody goes to break him out, and they say it's the true Mandarin who's pissed off that Ben Kingsley was using his name, and is pulling Ben Kingsley out of prison to go and confront and meet the true Mandarin. So if those are canon, and I don't know if they are or not, then there is a true Mandarin out there.
I think if there is a true Mandarin, in the comics, thank you, Gilbert. In the comics, we've talked about how in Shang-Chi, the original Shang-Chi had Fu Manchu. They had licensed Fu Manchu, the literary character, to be Shang-Chi's father. That was in the original comics. That was canon. It's since been retconned. But they could have the original Mandarin be Shang-Chi's father and really work that in. I think that'd be really, really interesting.
That's an opportunity. That's an opportunity right there. That would be cool. All right. What's next?
Aaron H., I know you're against shipping Captain Marvel and Thor, but imagine how powerful their kid could be. I'm going to be excited if she checks out what the God of Thunder has down under. Whatever it takes.
Hashtag whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. The only way we can stop Thanos is if we breed. That's it. Well, okay, whatever it takes. Hashtag. That would be, that would be one galactically powered individual. That would be your... what's the Franklin Richards? That would be your Franklin Richards of the Avengers side as opposed to the Fantastic Four side. That would be a scary kid, Robert. That would be a scary kid.
A very scary kid.
That would be a great pickup line for Thor to try to use on Captain Marvel. Hey, whatever it takes. All right. Last question of the day. What is it?
Carlos Herrera, what if I send in a super chat and only say what if?
What if indeed? It's time to start playing with it. All right, guys, listen, that will do it. That's all the time we have here today for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for coming along and being part of it. Hey, listen, there's still a bunch of super chat questions there. Everybody from Bo Big to Alan Gonzalez, Amnal, Angel, Casanova Frankenstein, all the way down. Don't worry, I got a companion video coming later today. All those questions will get answered in that companion video that's coming later today. Keep your eyes open for that, because your question is going to get addressed. All right, I want to thank the people joining me here. First of all, of course, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
Well, they can find me online playing with my Blade Runner spinner. I can't keep my hands off it now since you've got me going on. But find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel at The Burnett Work, or find me with John Campea on our new podcast, Best Movie, Worst Movie.
Woo, woo, woo.
And, of course, Ashley Whalen. Ashley, where can people find you?
You guys can check me out on my Instagram at AshAttack1 or my Twitter at AshAttack1, and my Instagram is my name, Ashley Whalen, 2 Y's in Ashley.
And you guys can simply follow me on Instagram at John Campea. Of course, go and visit www.thejohncampeashow.com. And hey, listen, by the way, I know a bunch of you have been emailing me about, hey, where's the follow-up video to the Captain Marvel spoilers? There were some technical problems. Robert is.
I promise today. I swear to God, it will be done today, and I'm really excited about it. And you're gonna love it. And so is my dog, apparently.
Yes, Gilbert is very excited. All right, guys, that will do it for us for today. Thank you so much for joining us. So my name is John Campea, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.